What is up, guys? Welcome back to Everything Goes with your host, T and K. Today is the night before the NFL draft, and we have a very special guest on with us today, joining us, sharing his incredible story, and we're very, very excited to hear it.
It's Elliott! It's picked off! It's picked off! It's Tracy Porter!
All right, guys, we have a very special guest on the phone today. We have Michael Motti from the New Orleans Saints, and he has an amazing story. We're going to touch a little bit about it, and we're going to just go over what his NFL career was about and what things were like being, in a family where he had a dad that played in the pros, and just touch a couple things and go up to the present day.
Hey, we're excited to have you on here, Mike. Do you prefer Mike or do you prefer Michael?
Michael's fine. I like to say my full name.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Call me Monty, but Michael's cool.
Now, Michael, you're born and raised New Orleans, right?
Yeah, I was born in New Orleans. I was raised in Mandeville, about 30 miles north of New Orleans.
So you were down there for the whole 2005 Katrina hurricane coming?
Yep, I was down there as a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
And we were playing a jamboree game down in Chalmette, and like a Friday before the storm hit, and that's kind of the first time we had heard about it and started reading on it, and we were kind of laughing about it, but not realizing that stadium that we played in would have like 26 feet of water in it.
Yeah.
So it was completely wiped out. But then we got about 2 months off of school that season.
Yeah, we had family that lived in New Orleans around that time too, and the stories that they told us, it's mind blowing to hear.
We're actually coming down to New Orleans next week. I lived down there for a couple of years. I'm a military brat, so I lived off of North Rampart in the 9th Ward. And,
okay.
And we're actually going to come down there, and we're going to go take a tour of that neighborhood again and see. It's been a long time since I've been down there, and it's just the stories that people have told us. It's amazing. It's amazing what people went through down in New Orleans. Now, how was your house and everything? Was it okay?
You know what? We were very fortunate. We had a house. We didn't have any water. We had a house to go back to, but there was some tree damage. It wasn't anything severe. A lot of people down there lost, especially 9th Ward, lost everything they had. No papers to even show that they owned the houses. They just passed down from generations of families that had lived there. It was just a tragic thing that happened, but just an unbelievable storm that came through.
I mean, you think about it, Katrina is one of those historical events that people are never going to forget about. You have 9/11, you have Katrina, you have things like that, and it's amazing. Like the Superdome, it basically became a shelter for the people that were living down there. Mm-hmm. And
look, it was my first taste of a crisis situation, emergency management, those kind of things. At a young age, I'm still. I still get fired up when I start watching hurricanes come in. As far as from a preparation standpoint, you always remember really how bad it could get. When the things hit the fan. So it was a learning experience for me at a young age, just by being around it, being in it. Granted, again, we were fortunate to have a house to go back to, and we were cutting and clearing fallen trees for about 2-3 months. But other than that, it was a rough time.
Now, we're going to fast forward a little bit. 2006, a very special game took place there. I guess it was the Dome's first home game, and you were there.
I was.
That had to be thrilling, man, to be in the reopening.
Now, let me ask you, before we even get into the story, I want to ask you a question I forgot to ask the last couple guys that we talked to. Is the rivalry in football really as insane as they say it is? Like the Saints, the Falcons, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Raiders, and Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. It certainly can be. I mean, it varies from team to team. I mean, every team's different, and there's so much turnover within every roster every year. But I mean, you definitely feel it down here. Just because the way that Coach Payton runs the program, it's a lot like a college program. where you have a lot of pride and the whole town is there's a lot of hatred towards Atlanta, but and I'm sure the same thing goes for if I was playing for Atlanta, it would be I would definitely get up more excited to play New Orleans just because from a player standpoint it's a little different, but yeah, you definitely amp it up for sure, but just because it means so much to the fans. And it's look at division game. Sometimes those games count for two. And they're more important, obviously. So
absolutely, yeah. So how was the atmosphere? I mean, it was the first home game since everything happened, and of course it's against Atlanta. Was that place just buzzing?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I don't think anybody sat down the whole game, but when Bono's playing, before the game, the pregame, and it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But it was just electric, the environment, and everybody could kind of just forget about rebuilding for a couple hours and enjoy some football and give everybody a huge sense of pride in the city for sure.
Now we all know the most iconic play happened that day. You have Steve Gleason, outstanding man, blocks the punt against Atlanta. You guys score a touchdown. As a fan in general, just being in that stadium, you just reopen the atmosphere. That'd be insane to watch.
It was still to this day, I think, the loudest I've ever heard any crowd. Definitely the most beer spilled in one single play in sports, probably. But you just kind of felt something was going to happen. Based on if I remember, Fajita's running down Michael Vick, it was 3 and out. It was and they were backed up punt. I remember like it was yesterday. But the eruption was just unlike anything I've ever heard.
You're lucky, man. I've yet to go to a Saints game. I'm still trying to get down there, but it's unbelievable.
It's my favorite place to play, without a doubt.
I've been to a couple when I was down there, but that goes way back to like the Bobby Aber, Dalton Hilliard, and Ray Jackson years. Mm-hmm. That's when they're kind of coming out of that stage where they were like the Aints and not the Saints, but
right.
They still beat the crap out of my Cowboys, so I can't say too much bad about the Saints. But we're going to come back to this story here because this is significant. I mean, there's a lot of people up there that listen to our podcast that don't know what happens years later, and we'll get into that. But we're going to fast forward a little bit. You always played football, and you always played defense, correct?
I played defense pretty much. I started in junior high. I was playing corner and played some quarterback and thought I was going to do that in high school. And but then I learned how to hit, and 8th and 9th grade, and I figured it was a lot better to be the hammer, not the nail. So I like defense.
Now you really must have been amazing at your position and your skill because you were ranked number 3 in the nation, and you were amongst ESPN's top 150, right?
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to have I had a good tape I put together my junior year, and that started making its rounds. And I had a lot of scholarship opportunities, got a lot of attention, ended up playing the U.S. Army All-American game, and they wanted me to wait till January to commit and do the hats, and make a big scene of it. It wasn't really my style, but it was that whole process was incredible.
Now, while you're playing, high school ball, is there ever a time when you look at that stuff and you try and see where you're ranked as far as the nation?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just looking at them on Rivals.com. We're checking out the articles. You're seeing other guys who's out there, where they're going. You start looking at other rosters, and because you're not competing against yourself here in your own district or your own state. It's really across the nation. So, you got to know who's out there, and who you're competing against.
Yeah, there's some guys that just don't. They're truly just focused on getting better. But I think that I'd take a peek at it too.
Now, you had to be on everyone's radar as far as colleges go. Did you have a lot of colleges hitting you up with scholarships and stuff like that?
I did. This was back when they could text. They could just straight text you. I think there's rules where they limit that now. But yeah, I would get calls in the middle of class. I'd walk outside and Coach Brent Venables from Oklahoma. He's like offered me a scholarship, and that was my first offer. Wow. And And I couldn't believe it, man. It was, just to have the opportunity to get a free education, first of all. But that's kind of when it started to hit me, like, okay, it's not like I just got offered by some, deep Division II. This is like Oklahoma. And so that's kind of when I knew, all right, it's going to waterfall here. And that was early on into my junior year. So, and it just kind of, it was Florida, and they had just come off a national championship, and then there was, next thing you know, I look up and there's 35, 40 offers, and I don't know where to go.
Oh, wow.
Now you had, oh my God, I mean, you had a lot of places to pick from. Why did you pick Penn State because your family came up here, or was it? I mean, because this is Big Ten, this is cold weather, and you're a Southern boy.
That's true. Well, I had a few different criteria for where, like, my decision process, but really it was where can I go to get the best education if football doesn't work out, and then where can I go to be the best linebacker, in my position, and to get the best training to give myself the best opportunity to play in the NFL, because that was my ultimate goal. And so I visited Florida first. I'm standing on the 50-yard line with Urban Meyer, and he says, "What percentage are you committed right now?" And I said 96. and we get back in the office, and now, mind you, my dad and I had agreed we were going to take all three of these visits, and then we'll come home, decide after we're done the visits. We're not going to make any decisions while we're at these places. And so Urban comes in the office back inside where my dad was. He said, "Hey, I got Michael's 96% committed." He said, "He better not." My dad grabbed his arm. He said, "He better not have committed. He's not committed." So, I don't know what I would have done without my dad walking me through that process. But so we ended up going to Oklahoma next, and then in Penn State with my last visit. I wanted to narrow it down to 3 or 4 at the least, and I felt like I fit in all three of those places, or could see myself there. And then I went up to Penn State, and ultimately, saw myself fitting in there the best, and really liked Coach Vanderlinden. He was the linebacker coach up there at the time. He had just, he had put out Paul Leslie, Dan Connors, all-time leading tackler. Sean Lee was my host up there, Navarro Bowman. It was just filled with. They were just producing NFL linebackers, and so.
Yeah, you actually jumped and took my list from me. I was just going to ramble off all these names. Like, what is it with Penn State where they just breed linebackers? I mean, all the way back to Jack Ham.
Yeah, I mean, as far as before Coach Vanderlinden got there, I don't know what was in the water up there, but it started with, at least in the modern era, was Ron Vanderlinden. I mean, he had a system in place, and then Coach Larry Johnson was the D-line coach, and he was always he was a great recruiter, bringing in some really good defense linemen, and so you put all that together. And the front seven was for a good stretch there was top 5, top 10 defense, and it was because those linebackers and their technique and fundamentals, and those guys are just they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, Penn State has just had a lot of a lot of good people. I mean, they had a local kid from around here, Saquon Barkley, who has just had an outstanding season with the Giants, went to Penn State, and he was just lights out.
Yeah, and he's probably one of the most electric players that I've ever seen play. And even more than his athletic ability is how good of a person he is, which I think is what that'll eventually come to light. The more people get to know him, but the short time I've been around him, and everybody that I know at Penn State that's worked with him, 10 out of 10 character, work ethic. I think he's once in a generation type of kid.
Yeah, he's a great kid, and those thighs are pretty big to tackle.
Well, I remember him playing football at the 90-pound level with my son Tyler, who we're talking with, and I remember helping him off the field because he hurt his knee at the time, and I always like to say to him, Saquon, maybe I saved your career by carrying you off the field that day.
Let's not talk about that.
I'm sure he would have found a way around that.
Yeah. But, so you ended up picking Penn State. All the stuff that was going on, we're not going to get into what happened up at Penn State, but I got to tell you this. Joe Paterno is one of the greatest coaches of all time. I don't care what happened, who said what, who did what. I don't care. How was your experience playing with one of the best coaches around?
Well, it was kind of a mixed bag. I obviously revered Coach Paterno, everything he had done for that program, but more, for the school, for the community. I mean, he built that place, and what he did, his legacy as far as molding young men into leaders in all the communities, and the alumni that come through there, based on his tutelage. That's kind of his legacy, in my opinion. But by the time I got there, he was 82, and so you can kind of imagine what it's like to have an 82-year head coach. Now there was days and there was month stretches where I was absolutely terrified of him. My first day on the field I came in early as a true freshman, and as soon as I walked on the field, I was walking somewhere, and he was like 2 fields over, and he's screaming at me. And he's like, "Monty, get up!" And I'm like, "How does he even see me?" First of all, I didn't know he could see that far. And so, he always had a way of checking you, and and so for that reason, I had ultimate respect for him while I played for him. But unfortunately, he was sick for a while, and he had a rough go towards the end. But again, I think his legacy is, it's been tarnished a little bit given the events. But he's just done so much good for that school and the community.
You also got another great coach in Bill O'Brien, who is the head coach of the Texans now. That'd be a great experience to be under him too.
Yeah, I think Coach O'Brien's one of the best coaches in football. I mean, he's Brown educated. I mean, he's blue collar. He's no BS, and I think he was definitely he's a blue collar guy. He's a Penn State guy. I think he was, and he's the perfect guy to really one of the only guys that could have stepped in the way he did, given the sanctions and everything, and handled it the way that he did, and really allowed us to.
I think if they would have gave him more time up there, I think things would have been different. I mean, like Franklin's doing an amazing job up there now. I think if O'Brien would, he's doing great with the Texans.
He's
don't get
got
me
a better
wrong.
option right
but
now.
I think if they would have gave him a few more years after the sanctions and everything were lifted, I think he would have recruited and things would have been a lot different up there.
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of why he stayed or left. I just know, the time he was there, the fact that they didn't have a losing season under the sanctions and they went down to 55 scholars. I mean, we had he was playing with 2 hands tied behind his back, or coaching with the 2 hands tied behind his back, and was still able to have some relative success there given the rules that they had to play under. So it was he basically with the help of his staff and his players, they kept it together through the worst of it. So
it's tough to hear this conversation about Penn State, because as weird as it sounds, we're huge Michigan fans in this household.
Yeah, have you ever got to play in the big house?
That was the one stadium I didn't play at in the Big Ten, but I was either hurt the year we went there, and then they came to us twice. So, but no, I missed that opportunity. But I forget the quarterback's name, Denard Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Played against him and Sam McGuffey and those guys.
Well, overall, you had a great college career. You had some injuries, but you had a great college career. How? You tore your ACL 3 times, correct?
Yeah, 1 on my right and 2 on my left.
And the last time you tore it, you were in your senior year. And you were having an amazing season. What'd you have? You had like 40 tackles in your first 4 games, 2 interceptions, 1 for like 99 yards. And then
I was rocking and rolling.
Yeah, you were rocking and rolling, man.
And then going into the 2 games before the end of the season? That's when you tore your ACL again?
Yeah. It's the second last game, and I just took it like I was engaged with the blocker, and then I got just a top block. So there's really nothing I could do about that. But that definitely cost me in the draft. Of course, the stock was one of the top linebackers, top 2 to 3 at least, and so yeah, that was costly. But I had an opportunity to get fixed up by a good doctor, and figured I'd give it a shot if I could. I wouldn't want to regret it if I got rehabbed up and then felt good like a year or 2 later. I would have regretted not giving it a shot,
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like going through it once, it's one thing, but going through it 2 more times after that, does it get harder, or because you've been through it, how hard you got to push to get back to where you were? Because that's 9 months of recovery?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was every one of them was different in their own way, but the first one was new, so that was very difficult. The second one, I knew the process. That was probably the smoothest. It was easiest to convince myself, like, okay, I just had defective ACL, so I got them both fixed, and I fixed my hips or whatever was causing the problem, and then that was it. Well, so I was telling myself, like, I'd done two. If I hit another one, like, that's it. So when that happened, mentally it was harder for me to convince myself that I could stick that thing in the ground, just because I knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't going to be as tight or as stable. Ultimately, I mean, I worked as hard as I could to get it that way, but so that was more of a mental battle. I think the third one was the hardest, but at the same time, I rehabbed up and went to the combine and ended up getting drafted in the 7th round, which was just for me a feat that I've just proved myself that I could do it. It was never that I couldn't play. I knew I could play. It was just a matter of staying healthy and being on the field. So,
and that has to be a great accomplishment, a great feeling when you get drafted, because like when you go through like 3 injuries like that, you see this with a lot of players, you get a lot of doubters, and it's probably frustrating, and it's hard to prove these doubters wrong. But then you get drafted, it's got to be an electric feeling to know that you've done it, you've overcome that obstacle.
Yeah, it was a little bittersweet in that sense, but ultimately you can't look back and you got to just control what you control, and that's why the windshield of cars, the size that it is, the rear view's so small. You keep your eyes forward, and
yes, sir.
And you just can't control that. So you just do the best with what you got, where you are, and always just that. Again, it was a mental battle. Don't get me wrong, but that one is just once you get to the NFL, it's a whole different ball game, and you're just scratching the claw and just to hang on, and I kind of found a little niche there. Took me a year or two, but had a great experience.
No, we had a guy from the Chicago Bears on before Easter, and he was talking to us about the combine and everything. And he said it's like 4 days of insanity because like the medical part of it alone is crazy. And like he had no significant injuries at all, to the point where 2 teams didn't believe him, so they made him go out and get full body MRIs. Was your medical part of it, because you had the ACL problem, was it kind of difficult to get through that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, of course, everybody knew they were looking at my knee, so you're sitting in the middle of a ballroom with, a giant table surrounding you with 50 doctors, and they call out your name, and they're calling out your injury history. Anytime you roll an ankle, basically, your whole life, they know about it. And, they just kind of, one by one, coming and just kind of poking at you, tugging at you while you're just sitting in your tights on a table. No one's really saying anything to you. You're just kind of like a piece of cattle sitting there.
Oh,
so it was, I'm sure it's about as close to a cattle auction as it can get. But that's what, it's the business is you're dealing with people as commodities here. So that's what they got to do. They're making a significant investment in you. They want to know what they're getting. So, yeah, of course I got them, MRI'd every part of my body too. That's part of the deal. So you just hope I don't need 32 teams to like me. I just need one team to like me. That's all.
Absolutely, yeah.
One team give me a shot.
And that one team was the Minnesota Vikings. How was that, your first time on the field for an NFL team after overcoming these injuries? That's got to be a blessing, a great feeling to have.
Look, it was, a lot of people, I knew I was fighting uphill battle just getting back on the field. And again, I just believed that in myself that I could play. It was just a matter of figuring out my body and getting healthy to the point where I could trust it and just go play like I knew I could. And it was, at that point you get the professional ranks. It's kind of just like it's just, you're the business. And so it was really up to me to make it happen. And it's not like college where you got the support team and staff that's, they're helping you and you got people it's just you. So that's was the adjustment for me, but it was ultimately that much more gratifying.
Now, you said earlier you like being the hammer and not the nail. What position did you like playing better? Because you were a special team specialist, so Did you like doing that, or did you like playing linebacker more?
Oh no, I mean I was a linebacker. I played linebacker. Of course, I'd rather I would rather been playing defense, but every linebacker comes in the NFL, and you better know how to play special teams, because if you're not starting on defense, there's only 46 uniforms every Sunday, so you better be on teams and contributing in some way. And so, I just tried to get in where I fit in as far as where I could play on defense, and did the best I could there. Got my opportunities when I got them. Missed some just for various reasons, but down in New Orleans, I got some really good opportunities to play, and just try to make the most of them.
I gotta ask, you move on from the Vikings to the Saints, okay? We just talked about how you were in the stands for the reopening of that game. What is it like? You're on the field now. You're from Louisiana.
Yeah, you're home.
You're playing on the field in front of your family, and that's surreal.
That was surreal. I mean, that's kind of when, I knew that, I had been through so much in my career, and I just had this belief that, eventually the worm was going to turn. Eventually I was going to, be on a come up, and it was going to come back to me in some way, because I knew how hard I worked, and so that, it just felt like it was all working out. Like it was a bigger, there was a higher power at work there. I just, I visualized it for so long. And, when that happened, honestly, I wasn't surprised. I was just excited for the opportunity. I was ready for, I couldn't have been more ready for the opportunity. So, and then to be in the stadium where I grew up, going and watching games, and it certainly made getting up for work every morning easy.
Well, it had to be insane being in that dome and having Drew Brees break you down before a game with that chant, and the crowd going nuts behind you.
What is he like, man? You gotta let me know here.
Well, Drew's one of the best teammates, best players ever been around, period. But the hardest workers. I mean, the most, I would say just the most consistently high level worker, and detail oriented to the maximum. And he treats the walkthrough on Wednesday like it's the fourth quarter 2-minute drive in the NFC Championship game. Like he takes every rep that seriously, and that's why he's so good. When the moments really count, he's the first one in, last one out type of guy. I got to see that firsthand. You hear about guys that are like that until you're around one, and I knew everywhere. Like every Friday, he was walking in the door at a certain time. It was like a 3-minute window where he would walk in the door, training room door, every Friday. Every minute of the day with give or take 2 or 3 minutes, that's where he'd be. But he had his process, and that's what he did, and that's what works, and that's why he's so successful.
He's gonna be an instant Hall of Famer instantly.
But I got to go back to the whole kickoff thing again, because sitting at home, we watch the kickoffs, but you can't really see what's going on. You see the guy catch the ball, then you see him eventually get tackled. What is it like when that ball goes in the air and you're running down that field, and you either have to break up that wedge, or what is your plan? I mean, obviously it's to get the guy with the ball, but do you have a set plan where you have to go break up a line or anything?
So it depends on where you're at. We have on the kickoff, sometimes we have a plan. Sometimes we know what the kicker's trying to do. He's trying to kick it in the end zone. We also know how deep the ball's got to go for the returner, whether he'll bring it out or not. We usually have an idea. Some guys got a green light wherever. It doesn't matter if there's a good returner. The opposing special team coach will just let him do what he wants. But for the most part, we had a good kicker and we get it down there. But when we didn't, sometimes we try to get greedy and we don't want to pin him a little deeper, maybe inside the 20. And because tackles inside the 20, we put at a premium. So if you're at, usually your 1s and 2s are your faster guys, like your gunner type guys, your 3-4s are kind of your bigger linebacker types, and then your 5s are your hybrid speed guys that can kind of play some games and do some twists and different things. But there's all kind of schemes. It's as detailed as you could possibly, more than you could possibly imagine for just a one play that half the time you just end up jogging off because it's a touchback. But it is adrenaline to the maximum. You run full speed. controlled chaos. And sometimes it's just chaos.
Yeah, it really does take some big balls to play that position.
Yeah. Now, do you think the NFL, what they're doing as far as the rules, do you think they're doing that basically just to get away from all the collisions that go on in kickoffs? Because they're eventually going to get rid of kickoffs the way it sounds.
Yeah, and they probably will. And I just don't think I mean, you're going to eliminate a whole phase of the game, which is field position is what I mean, I was a special teams guy, so we played a separate game of field position within the game. If we pin a guy in between or behind inside the 20 on a kickoff, let's say we pin him at a 15, that's like that's a gain of that's plus 10 yards for us. And when all of a sudden we get a punt and they only get, maybe it's -7 on the punt, that's plus 23 on our side. Now you add those up over the course of a half, maybe that's 60, 70 yards. Well, that equals 3 points essentially, because that's a field goal. You get 100 yards, that equals 7 points. On generalizing here, but but you're playing that game. It's a kind of just a strategic numbers game. You're playing special team. It really is a whole separate deal. So you take that part out of it. You're kind of just eliminating one more thing and it's guys' jobs too. So I mean, I'm always pro. Quit messing with the game.
Yeah, that we talk about that all the time. Just let them play. But the biggest thing I wanted to ask you today is, you're playing the Falcons, man. It's a rival game on a Thursday night, and they're honoring Steve Gleason, who blocked the punt on the reopening of the New Orleans Stadium, and you're lined up for a punt. And man, you got in there. I remember watching that game too. They were probably sleeping. I was probably screaming like a little girl down here, but I remember watching you block that punt, man, and you walked in for a touchdown. First of all, I just want to say that was awesome to watch, man.
But what was it like? I mean, it's like the seas parted, man, and it was like there's that kicker right in front of you. What's going through your mind other than to kill him?
Well, that was actually one of the most surreal moments. It wasn't surreal. I had seen it so many times. I visualized that play so many times for years. Blocking a punt. That's what I live for as a special teams guy. Like, you do that, you change the game, you possibly change your career. Like, all of a sudden now you're the guy who blocks punts. So one of those plays literally changed the whole perception. It literally took the course of my career. So that's all I visualized, was making those big game-changing plays. And I remember it was like slow motion. They say that there's, get into this like flow state, but these people study in performance, and I was there. I mean, it was as calm as I've ever been. I remember hitting the ground, and then I opened my eyes, and the ball was sitting right there. I could have just grabbed it, and it was like, I had done it a million times.
Let me ask you this. How many times did you watch ESPN that night? Because that had to be one of the top 10 plays.
I didn't sleep that night. I'm gonna be honest. It was the first time. It was the first time I did not sleep after the game, and it was first and last, because I was just on a high from adrenaline that I'll never be able to match, I don't think. But I just knew that was something that it was like the stars aligned in that moment.
And it's just crazy, because you were there. Watch Steve Gleason do it, and in the night they're honoring him, you do it.
Yeah, it's still surreal to me. Every time I haven't talked about it in a while. I mean, it just every time I forget about it, it's an unbelievable moment. It really is.
It's a great accomplishment.
Even for me, look, and I was sitting in the stands, and I'm like, that's what I watched Steve Gleason. I wanted to be Steve and do what he did on the field, and that goes back, like 20, 25 years. That's how long I've been visualizing that. It's a lot of energy out in the world. Law of attraction. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it was an unbelievable moment. And look, they didn't block me. The guy just totally whipped. So it wasn't like I did anything crazy. I just scalped the ball and went and tackled the punter. So, but again, the opportunity was there, and I was ready for it. So.
I just got to ask you a question off topic real quick, because you were talking about, you get those blocks and it can change your career a little bit. One guy who's on the Saints right now, you have Taysom Hill. He's a third-string quarterback, and they move him to special teams because he's built like a tank, and he's faster than most people in the league. And we've got to watch him evolve as a special teams player, because he's blocked punts. and he
does everything.
He's doing kickoff returns. He's playing receiver, and just to watch someone like that evolve, it's kind of crazy. You talked about that. Just you block that punt, you can get more opportunities. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, you look. It's a big play business, and especially special teams. We look all week to figure out a way to impact the game and change the course of the game. And it's one play here or there. The margin for error is so small in NFL games every Sunday, and the guys just got a knack for making plays. Taysom Hill, one of the best guys around, best people, 10 out of 10, and athletically, absolute freak show. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean. And he could run, he could hit, he's just an all-out athlete. He's just a pure-blooded football player. That's what I would describe him as. And he was an awesome opportunity that I got to play with him and kind of help him out when he was new. I was running right next to him down kickoff. He was like the widest guy. I was right next to him, the second from the widest, and I'd say, hey, Tash, go in there, crash, and blow it up. I will pop out and cover you up. So we'd give him the green light, and he'd just go do his thing. And I would sit there 10 feet behind him. I would kind of pull up and, get the contain. And man, he did some stuff that I was like, you want to talk about kamikaze. I thought I was crazy.
Now, we have a few more questions. We're not holding you up for anything, are we?
I got to roll in about 5 minutes, but.
Okay, real quick, you're the GM of the Saints. What does it take for them to get back to the Super Bowl?
I don't think anything. I think it's been bad plays called against them. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, look, they should have been in the Super Bowl. I think their best, their most ideal opportunity was last season or back in February. But, it was disappointing to see that they couldn't get a deal done with Mark Ingram. I think that they've underestimated the impact that he has in the locker room. I think he's one of the best players, best teammates I've ever played with, in a positive impact in the locker room. The guys look up to him. He's a leader, and I still think he's playing his best ball. So that's going to be a void there on the offensive side. But they're going to have weapons. They're going to have Drew. He's going to be Drew, and defensively, I'm sure they'll pick up some more weapons and. They're going to be competitive. They have Drew Brees. You have an opportunity to win every single game. All you need on defense is, 3 or 4 stops in critical situations, and you're in every game. That's the way it is. So, I think they have. I don't know. It's only.
They're going to be good.
It's April,
they're going to be good.
They're going to be fine.
All right. My last question before we let you go, then, just because you've gotten to play with the Saints. What is it like when, you did your job on defense and Drew Brees has the ball in his hands, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you just get to watch him, work his magic and win the game?
Yeah, that was an adjustment for me when I first got down to New Orleans. Every third down in Minnesota, my rookie year, we had Christian Ponder, and no disrespect to him, but our third down conversion percentage was it wasn't what it was in New Orleans. I'll just say that. So we punted a lot. And so, it was first down. I had my helmet on. If we're in the Superdome and it's third down, and I'm just, okay, I guess I'll get up and watch this. And I'll put slowly be putting on my helmet. Okay, conversion. Okay, here we go. I'll go sit back down now. It was you kind of just the third down percentage was unbelievable. And we watched him, and then we watching Kamara. Those guys just. It was a show in itself, I enjoyed watching it on the sideline. So,
so awesome,
unbelievable experience.
All right, man. We truly do appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely,
to our podcast.
It's an honor.
Absolutely, guys.
We enjoy having people like you, just NFL athletes, MLB athletes, just to come on and share their experience to give us as a fans the knowledge of what goes on. But
so what before you go, what's next from Michael Motti as far as football is done, but do you have any big plans?
As far as plans, I got a lot of irons in the fire. Got some coaching opportunities, got some broadcasting opportunities. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get into. I'm trying to just take some time away from the game and figuring out the next direction here. And it's a transition process. Kind of takes a while to I guess, deregulate, and transition into real world and figure out where your place is and, what I'm interested in. And so, I don't know exactly for sure, but it'll be something. It'll materialize here shortly. We'll see what happens.
Well, we're hoping the best for you. Maybe we'll have you back on in the future if you'd like to come on.
I appreciate that. That was a good time. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
problem.
thanks for coming on. Have a
good
great
one,
one.
man.
All right. Thank you, fellas.
All right, so we had the opportunity to have Michael Motti on last night with us. This is the second part of the interview just because it was a very late interview. But it was a very good blessing to have him on. It's almost another stepping stone for us to have the opportunity to talk with someone who played a lot in the NFL, played with New Orleans. He grew up in New Orleans. It's awesome just to get the information from these players and that they're willing to talk with us on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, he got to go back to his hometown, play for his hometown team, a team where his dad played. His dad was a receiver. He played for the Redskins as well. And just to go through all the things that he went through in his career. I mean,
It's just cool because he blocked he blocked the punt against the Falcons, and it was the same exact kind of moment like Steve Gleason did. And I remember watching that game. I was freaking out. It was so surreal to have him on talking about Drew Brees and Taysom Hill and all the guys that I watch now. It's so incredible. It was awesome.
and we never even got into the one part about his whole career. He played with ulcerative colitis. I mean, it's an inflammatory bowel disease that he had him in excruciating pain, and he played from Penn State all the way up into the Saints with that pain until he finally had the surgery to fix that problem.
I think one of the mind-blowing things about this podcast is we started this podcast for fun. It still is just for fun, and we never thought that we would have athletes on this podcast. But the opportunities that we're getting, it's so awesome.
It's amazing. It's
because as a
mind-blowing.
fan, we have so many questions. And when we get to ask these players questions, like I got to ask him what it's like to have Drew Brees break down the huddle. Like I see it on TV every Sunday, and to have a player's point of view it's awesome. It's so awesome. I feel like a little kid in a candy shop.
Yeah, no, the little girl last night. But it is amazing. It's awesome because it gives you a perspective to look at what they go through and not just look at them as overpaid athletes. I mean, these guys, they bust their butts
For a
every
living.
week and every off season. I mean, for him to go through 9 months of rehab for an ACL tear, but to do it 3 times, the guy's got an amazing heart, and just the drive in him to get through all the obstacles that he got through to, end up playing in the NFL.
Yeah, it was awesome. We are moments away from the NFL draft. We are currently 30 minutes away from the NFL draft. I am very excited. Patrick Mahomes, actually, I don't know if you know this, but he just got named the Madden 20 cover athlete. It's him flexing his muscles. It was actually pretty cool. Well deserved.
Well deserved. But usually what happens is they get the jinx. Usually when someone gets on the cover, the next year is usually a bad year. So we'll see what happens. But,
go ahead.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, this draft has so many unknowns what's going to happen. I mean, the whole Kyler Murray thing, there's a lot of debate whether they're going to go with the quarterback or whether they're going to go with Nick Bosa or whether they're going to trade that pick. I'm listening right now to 105.3 in my ear, and they're saying that the head coach wants Kyler Murray, the scouts want Nick Bosa, and the owner's like, I don't know which way to go. So it's going to be interesting.
I think if I'm Arizona, number one, you already have your quarterback saying that this is an annoying situation because you drafted him last year and you're already willing to trade him, okay? He's a good quarterback. You take the best. You need some defensive help. You also need some offensive help, but I think you take the best available player, which in my opinion is Nick Bosa. You take Nick Bosa or you take the best receiver.
Or either that, I mean...
Or they trade down
can always trade down
and get an amazing receiver because they don't need a quarterback. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. I love him. I hope he gets picked by anybody. But I don't think the Cardinals need to get him.
But the rumor has it is that the Giants offered them 2 second-round picks this year and I guess next year for
Their first overall pick?
No, for their quarterback they drafted last year, Rosen.
Really? I would have took that, I think.
And,
No, I don't know. Rosen's a good quarterback. I like Rosen.
So that's why I'm kind of thinking that they're not playing. They're not planning on picking up Kyler Murray. I think they're just playing this game to try to either
see what they can
make
get out
that
of
pick
it.
worth more money, and they trade it away or whatever. But It's going to be interesting because the Giants are looking at quarterbacks. They're saying Oakland's looking at quarterbacks. They're talking about Washington trading up to get
Washington
Haskins.
needs a quarterback. They need a quarterback. I know they got Case Keenum, but that is just to fill a void right now. It's some desperate need in quarterback.
I mean, it's going to be boring for you and I because the Saints and the Cowboys don't have a pick this year in the first round.
But listen, the Saints are known for trading up, but Coach Sean Payne said that he likes where they're at right now. I don't think, but he could just be talking.
But see, when he gets to the 27th pick, I'm just going to play videos of Amari Cooper because that was our pick. But for you guys to get back into the first round, it's going to cost you too many draft picks in the future.
Not if we want to get into the mid first round, later first round, but we don't really need a desperate need. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to take a quarterback right away. I think that they're probably going to go for a receiver or a cornerback.
And that's the nice thing about the Cowboys this year. I mean, there's no real need. I mean,
there's no need to trade in.
There's no real holes other than maybe Jeff Heath. But I mean, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I am excited. I think the first couple picks up to the top 10 is going to be really interesting.
Oh, I'm very curious to see exactly what Oakland does because they've 3 first-round picks. One thing that I saw that's interesting is the Miami Dolphins they're saying that they might pass on a QB this year because they don't like the draft class of QBs, which is mind-blowing because they don't have a quarterback right now. If I'm not mistaken, Tannehill was traded away.
Well, they're saying
they have nobody.
They're saying that the quarterback draft next year is going to be huge.
I know, but the Dolphins have nobody. Who are they going to pick up? Who's left in the free agent that's a quarterback that could be good enough to fill that void right now?
I don't know. It could be a sign of they're going to tank, so they get the first round pick.
I mean, they're basically saying they're going to tank until 2020 and that they might just take a defensive line. They're saying they might trade down, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just mind-blowing because
I'm excited. I really am because, like I said, it's going to be interesting and. They're saying that the Giants could actually either trade that pick away and move down a little bit to pick up more picks, or they're going to actually take a defensive player under I think it's the number 6 pick, and then the 17th pick they're talking about taking a quarterback.
And I'm saying because I heard that the Giants might not even take Haskins anymore. They let that Duke guy. I'm excited to see is I heard Dallas is looking at a running back just because of the whole Zeke thing. They don't know if they want to give him that big contract that they might start. And there's so much talk going around Zeke right now saying how he's fat and how he's going to start to decline. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, because I just think it's a bunch of crap. I mean, he sent out a video the other day of him, and he's in great shape.
He's just a tank. I think he's just a tank.
I don't know. I mean, I would have concerns if with the 58th pick, if they went running back, I would have concerns then if I was a Cowboys fan. Are they going to play Zeke out for 2 more years, then franchise tag him, or are they going to replace him? So
yeah,
I did. You never know. It's a business at the end of the day.
I did see how he posted a video of him ripped after fans are trashing him for being fat, but I think he's fine. I think that Dallas is in trouble because I know Dak's going to want a big contract. I know Zeke's going to want a big contract, but.
It's going to be interesting what the Raiders do because apparently Gruden sent the scouts home. Usually you have these guys in your war room with you preparing to do the draft, and last week he sent them home, and basically him and the GM are running the show. They're like, this is it. This is what we're doing, and they're done. It's going to be interesting. They have a lot of picks. They accumulated a lot of picks. Them and the Giants. I think the Giants have 12 picks, and I don't see them picking up 12 players. So I'm going to see a lot of wheeling and dealing going on.
And the Jets had the 3rd pick overall too, so I want to see what's going to happen there because they picked up some. I heard that they're willing to trade Robbie Anderson too, which is shocking because he's a good wide receiver. You think they want to restack up that offense, but this whole draft, last year's draft, was insane. I'm excited to see it.
It's going to actually be interesting to see what I'm interested in what the teams in our division do. I'm going to be watching the Giants. I'm going to be watching the Redskins, and I'm going to be watching the Eagles. It's going to be interesting to see which way they go because Dallas has the 58th pick, so that's basically the second. That's almost the end of the second round. So it's going to be a long time before they pick, unless they trade their 2nd and 3rd pick, their 90th pick, to move up in the second round, which they're talking about right now in my ear.
Did you see that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is making his big league jump tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think it's well deserved. I think he's ready.
He's considered one of the top prospects in MLB. He's batting .381 with 20 homers. And with the Blue Jays are only 3.5 games out of first place right now. The Yankees a game and a half, I believe, from the Rays. This is huge. They needed to call
the Yankees.
They needed to call him up because the Vladimir Guerrero is a huge at bat, and he's really going to help that team. Because let's face it, Toronto's not looking too bad. I mean, I know they're 11 and 14, but they're not looking bad.
But the Yankees, they had a nice spot in their their schedule where they won 6 in a row now.
Dude,
But Boston actually helped us out. They beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And they got us back because we were 6 games back, and I think they swept Tampa Bay, which helped us out huge.
You could call the Yankees the Rail Riders right now. I mean, literally, their whole team is their prospects, and they're winning. They won 6 games in a row. I mean, 7 out of the 9 starters are out of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks because we got Sanchez back last night, and he struck out 4 times. So it's going to take time for him to get back into the mix of things. And, they're saying Hicks is coming back, and they're saying Stanton is coming back soon, but he has another injury now, and he just got a shot in his shoulder.
And the Yankees also just picked up Cameron Maybin, which, I got mixed feelings. Cameron Maybin is depth for us because Clint Frazier sprained his ankle. He's out.
He's
10
a body.
days.
He's a body.
Clint Frazier wanted to play through that 10 days, but the Yankees won't let him. He's so hot right now, so it's tough to lose that bat. I love the way that Clint Frazier is playing.
It stinks because you don't want to take the guy out of the lineup. I mean, he has a rolled ankle, but he was hitting the ball a ton, and you don't want to see him have any time off as long as they're hot. But these younger guys, they're stepping up and they're really helping the Yankees out. My biggest concern is our bullpen. We were supposed to have the best bullpen in baseball, and right now
It's really only Chad Green,
not
though.
looking good.
Chad Green gave a grand slam against the Angels the other night.
He had a rough outing again, and CeCe had a bad outing last night, and I mean we were down to 5-0 at one point.
Yeah.
And battled back, and it's just. We got to stay focused. We got to get these. We can't get swept in a series. We got to keep grinding and winning games in series and just stay afloat until we get our starters back. And I guess Andujar's coming back soon too as well. My concern is going to be our main pitching. I said it in the beginning, and I know Rudy had talked about it with us. CeCe Sabathia, I don't see him as a starter anymore, and it showed again last night. I think you got to move him to the bullpen.
It's the NL East I like to watch because the Phillies were one of the hotter teams in that division. They're slowly falling, but they beat the Mets last night. They're still grinding. They're still grinding. JT is leading their team in batting average with a 282, and Hoskins already has 7 home runs and 20 RBIs.
Yeah, but they got the injury bug too. They got the
problems.
They do. It's good that it's happening early, but you just hope to God like these guys aren't in a situation where you're going to lose them for a while. Like Judge, we don't know when we're getting Judge back.
No, we don't. There's a lot of injuries out there this year, and it's sad to see.
But you see the cream of the crop is starting to rise back to the top in each division. You got the Dodgers, which I'm surprised. The Rockies are in last place, but the Dodgers
that
are
division's
up there.
insane because I think the bottom guy is only 3.5 games out.
Yeah. I mean, and all the divisions are still pretty much close. Even the Colorado, they're only 4 games out.
Bryce Harper's only batting 261, just to throw that out there. I mean, he's got 5 home runs. But
yeah, everyone's going to go through their slumps.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest deficit in any one of these divisions is 6.5 games, and so everyone's still in it. So it's wide open. We'll see what happens.
I think we got to talk about that Damian Lillard shot. Did you watch that?
No.
Against OKC?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
I heard about it. I've been hearing about it all day.
And he was deep behind the arc. And then you have Paul George says that was a terrible shot, even though he made it.
I heard he was just standing back there, just
he was
waiting.
He was waiting. And he threw it up, and he drained it. And I'm happy for that. I remember we had pressed on the podcast. I was rooting for OKC, but their shenanigans kind of did get old. Like they were all tapping their wrists when Damian Lillard lost, and they were. And one thing that I like about Damian Lillard is when he got interviewed, he said, a lot of those players in that team, they talk a lot of crap, and even after one win. And he's sitting there. He's like, all I did is I'm not going to talk crap until we win the series. And they won the series. And it's insane. That shot was insane. He was way back there. It's like a video game almost.
It's interesting because I thought for sure that, the Golden State Warriors were going to walk through the playoffs again until they got to like the next round where they
Dude, I hope the Clippers win that series.
The Clippers are bringing it to them. And it's really interesting because it looks like it almost looks like Golden State doesn't care. It's like they just want the season to be over, and they're going to go and if they win this series, they're going to play against a hot Houston team, and it's going to be interesting because Houston. I think Houston with Chris Paul back and healthy, they're a different team, and I think they're more than capable of taking it to the Golden State.
Sixers ended up beating Brooklyn in their series win.
Real chippy series, too.
That was a real chippy series.
Chippy. And now they're going to go up against Toronto, and I think they're 0 of 13 against Kawhi Leonard.
That's just quiet. Toronto's a dangerous team, man. They really are.
But
Brooklyn gave it all, man. Like I told a lot of people if the Sixers would have lost, I was going to root for Brooklyn because you don't ever see teams like that in the playoffs, and it's cool to see them. But the Sixers played well.
But the top 4 teams are left in the East, and it's 2 games in Toronto starting Saturday. So I see the Sixers have to take one of those 2, one of them in Toronto. You can't come back to Philadelphia down 0-2.
No. I think what was cool is I think it was our first podcast we ever did. We talked about the Sixers not having a bench, that they would have to rework their starters in order to
Now Scott's hurt.
Is he really?
Yes.
I didn't know that, but they really did have a good order there with their starters. You'd have JJ out there with Simmons, and then you'd sub them out. You'd put Butler out there with Tobias. It just worked out. You had a lot of shooters out there that could shoot.
I just hope the last game is a turning point for us as far as our defense goes, because we
blew them out.
We took that game early and fast and never let them back in it.
They didn't score points like the end of the first quarter.
I know. It was amazing.
And then I love how we were talking about McConnell, who I love. I'm a big McConnell fan, and he didn't play all playoffs, and they put him in there, and his first shot he shot a jumper. I was so pumped, and then I just love the guy. I was so happy to see him get in there.
Absolutely. He's a great player. And the nice thing about him is he never picks up his dribble. He's always drawing defenders around. I mean, he's just
he takes command of that team.
Yes.
He really does. For a little white guy, he takes great control of that team. And
he's a good point
He's
guard.
great defend. He plays great defense for a little guy. I give him that. I'm just excited. I hope that they could beat Toronto. I think that we had the team to go all the way. I hope Golden State loses. That'd be awesome to see LA go a little further. But I'm excited for the playoffs.
Well, I'm thinking it's time to wrap this up. I hear the national anthem on the TV downstairs for the start of the draft. We need to take some notes and figure out what's going on and then come back on another podcast.
Yeah, we thank you guys for joining this podcast today. If you want updates, follow our Facebook page. It's Everything Goes with a Z. Also, we have a Twitter page. It's @GoesEverything. Stay updated with our notifications, and don't forget to click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
We hit 78
word.
subscribers, and we're blessed to have that opportunity to just share we like to have this as a nice environment for you guys, just to feel like you're sitting on the couch with us talking sports.
Spread the word. Get them to sign up, subscribe. It's free, and like the videos.
All right, guys, we thank you for joining this podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.